Guys, we talk about a lot of things on this channel, but here recently, we've started to dip our toe into lore. Now, trust me, I am by no means a lore daddy in the Destiny universe. Those titles rest solely on Mylan and Byte's shoulders. I'm just a titan with a butt towel who happens to be pretty interested in what the heck is all around us. Here recently, we did a video going over the lore of weapon foundries. And by the way, if you haven't checked that one out, a lot of work was put into that. And if you want to learn things about like Tex Mechanica, Vice, Hockey, etc., it is a great video giving you rundowns of all the different weapon foundries. We also did a speculation video for Season 17 and what to expect with the potential return of Siva, Rasputin, and Lady Aphrodite. Again, feel free to check those out. But today, we're going to be mixing things up a little bit. We're going to be talking about PvP lore. Wait, there's lore in PvP? I thought it was just cheese and toxicity. Actually, there is lore. Matter of fact, every single Crucible map contains its own lore. Today, we're going to take a step back in time. We're going to talk about the lore of the Crucible and how it came to be, and then we're going to dig deep and look at all the lore surrounding each and every Destiny 1 Crucible map and what secrets they hold. Now, to start off, we have to talk about one of the most important conflicts in Destiny's history, and that is the famous Battle of Twilight Gap. Now, this battle was monumental because of what came after once the dust eventually settled. And essentially, we wouldn't have a lot of what Destiny is today if this battle never took place. Now, the Battle of Twilight Gap happened when most of the Fallen Houses banded together, joining forces to attack the city. Now, calling it a battle doesn't do it any justice. This isn't your typical Destiny firefight. This was a full-on war. Thousands of Guardians versus even more Fallen. And you're like, yo, Cross, how the hell did they fit in Twilight Gap? Because that map is tight. But again, that's just where we're actually fighting in the Crucible. This is a much bigger area that this war took place in. You had actual tank warfare going on between Fallen walkers in a shooting match with the city's heaven weaponry. And this was a huge, large-scale conflict, and it all took place at the Twilight Gap, an abandoned military base at the outskirts of the last city. Now, the city and Lord Saladin organized a large force of Guardians to fight off the Fallen onslaught, and Lord Shaxx was among this Guardian army, commanding his own fire team, consisting of familiar faces like Liu Feng and Anna Bray, among others. Now, Lord Saladin eventually made the order to fall back from Twilight Gap because he believed that the base in the city was lost due to the overly aggressive advances the Fallen were making. But Lord Shaxx and his fire team refused the order and instead secured a gap in the wall to hold off the Fallen, to keep them from entering the last city. Shaxx's team maintained this position, which gave the Vanguard enough time to construct a counterattack that finally beat back the Fallen. Needless to say, boys, Shaxx didn't just get into Mars pants for no reason. My man can plug holes. Now, this war led to a lot. Thousands of Guardians died due to the heavy artillery strikes that wiped out them and their ghosts. Anna Bray was presumed dead after she was seen falling off the gap. Faisal Crux built the Gallahorn from fallen Guardians' armor to commemorate them. The Vanguard began authorizing strikes against enemy targets in the hope to prevent another attack of that scale happening in the future. And Shaxx created the Crucible as a way to train new Guardians because so many of his own generation were killed at Twilight Gap. Now, that's why the Crucible exists in game today. We're not just fighting each other for no reason. It started out as a way to train our combat skills and expertise, and eventually grew into something much more. Something the people of the last city began to enjoy, almost like a sport. As time went on, Crucible matches became broadcasted. People started rooting for their favorite Guardians, often wearing clothes and tunics outfitted with their favorite team's logos and colors. Gambling even started to take place over who would win each match, and the weapons foundries used the Crucible as a way to show off their newest weapons. The city's factions started sponsoring winners that donned their colors. Champions were crowned, like the Titan Valor, and even Ikora, Zavala, and Cage 6 were all champions at one time. But the Crucible also had its villains, like Dredgen Yor, for example, who wielded Thorn against Guardians, which led to him permanently killing a Guardian with it during a match. And then he proceeded to bag him in front of everyone. Nah, I'm joking. So after the battle at Twilight Gap, Lord Shaxx used his militarized frames that he called the Red Jacks to find and secure potential Crucible areas, as well as protect and guard all Crucible zones from hostile forces. Now, notable Red Jacks include Arcite 9940, also known as the Crucible Quartermaster in Destiny 1 and the assistant to Lord Shaxx, Dali 9940, who was the most experienced Red Jack as she survived over 40 missions, while most Red Jacks barely survived one. Both Arcite and Dali were constructed and brought online during the early construction of the city walls. The Red Jacks also recorded Crucible matches and stored combat feeds. Some of these feeds we'll be referencing as they relate to the lore of certain maps and are easily found in Destiny 1's Grimoire cards. So with the beginning out of the way, and now that you know how the Crucible came to be and the purpose it serves, let's get into the actual maps and their lore. There's 31 of them to get through. Well, 30, since we already talked about Twilight Gap. But buckle up, fellas, because this video's got some girth, so get ready to have your mind blown. First up, Asylum. Ah, yes. Located in the Ishtar Sink on Venus, and personally one of my favorite maps maps. Now, before the collapse, this would have just been another stop on the subway line between Clovis Bray's Venus Arcology headquarters and the Academy campus by the shore. Now, it's a grim reminder of the lives, the dreams, and the progress we lost when the darkness came. For the Guardians of the Crucible, it's a place to sharpen their blades in the shadow of the Vex, an enemy who knows no such sentimentality. Now, you'll notice as we continue through these maps that Clovis Bray is in the lore of so many of them. Their facilities connect together through underground tunnels or subways. They're everywhere. Also, this is where Lord Shaxx found the frames, Dali, and our site right here at Asylum. So if you want to know the significance of this map. Now, Bastion, located in the Meridian Bay on Mars. From the lore, thick, rugged terrain masked one of the largest Vex structures on Mars, leaving this imposing gate as the only conventional entrance. With the Cabal's interest in Vex activity, it was a matter of when, not if, they would set their sights here. The Cabal deployed a massive ground and air offensive to breach the wall and enter this subterranean labyrinth. We don't know what the Vex deployed in defense, but we know this: the Cabal didn't make it very far. The Vex have since mysteriously vanished from this region, giving the Crucible one of its largest arenas in the solar system. The Cabal, on the other hand, still prefer to keep their distance. Yeah, you want to talk about large-scale maps? Bastion was it, man. Matter of fact, many people that played Destiny for the first time, when they saw Bastion, immediately thought of big team battle. You had turrets, pikes, tanks, and I know this is like mind-blowing my Destiny 2 players that never saw anything like this, but yet that was like the direction Destiny's PvP was originally going in, was like that big team battle that we saw from Halo. Bastion was such an amazing map for that. Now, Black Shield, located in the Firebase Viria on Phobos. Now, codename Black Shield, this decommissioned Firebase is believed to have been a key position used by the Cabal as they established their war base on the surface of Mars. With the majority of their forces stationed planetside, Guardians have been able to claim Black Shield as a competitive training ground. Both Shaxx and Commander Zavala have questioned the Cabal's strategy, believing that forfeiting such a strategic position may one day leave the Cabal and Mars open to a proper offensive. Ah yes, Black Shield. Many trial games on this map. Actually, I hated this map. I hated everything about it. It's a big map. I didn't mind it for 6v6, but for 3v3, I almost felt like it was too big. People could hide in the tunnels. And personally, considering like Destiny's peer-to-peer network, I just don't like any map that has doors, right? To me, it just poses problems. Regardless though, interesting lore piece on Black Shield. Cathedral of Dusk, located actually on the Dreadnought amongst the Ring of Saturn. Beautiful map, huge, in the stars, and honestly one of the more popular maps for game modes like Rift. Now the lore. As soon as the first Guardians penetrated the Dreadnought, Shaxx's Redjacks launched a boarding party to Oryx's fortress. By war's end, they fought all the way to the ship's impossible weapon, the Dark Ordnance that obliterated the Awoken fleet. It was there that they found what the Warlocks named the Cathedral of Dusk, a hive burial site for what? A former master of Oryx? Comrade? Lover? It was vile and obvious that Oryx never expected the light to reach so deep inside his throne, to such an intimate space, but he didn't expect a lot of things, like a Guardian training ground atop the husk of his dead ship. Now, this just goes to show how quickly Shaxx jumps at the opportunity for a new Crucible zone. Moving pretty slow here in Destiny 2, though. Next is Frontier, located in the city perimeter on Earth. Now, you either love this map or hate it. One of my favorite things to do in this map was actually jumping on the bridge, getting a snipe off. It was considered out of bounds, but you can like chill up there for just a second and squeeze off a snipe, or maybe a few scout rifle shots, and then dip back down. Now, the lookout station at the edge of the city's borders was decommissioned in the face of the increasing fallen attacks shortly before the Battle of Twilight Gap. Refitting of the station post-battle was mothballed when Lord Shaxx found that amongst the dirt, dust, and rusted metal, the station was primed for live fire exercises. The runway layout of Frontier Station makes it a perfect course to train for the rising craze of Rift Battle Assault. And again, another map that was very popular for Rift, but a lot of us even enjoyed it for Trials. Now, Icarus, located in the Caloris Basin on Mercury. The facility on Mercury has remained untouched by the Vex for reasons unknown. The Golden Age technology at this location remains intact, harnessing energy from the sun and converting it to solar light. The Vanguard has denied petitions from the various weapon foundries of the city to research the solar farm and the resources it continues to collect until the Warlock orders have finished their surveys. An exemption has been granted to Lord Shaxx and his Crucible. The Guardians are free to use Icarus as a live fire training zone. Now, we have a ghost fragment lore piece for this map that is very unique. This is the only Redjack log that errored out multiple times as Dali 9940 tried to download and upload the combat feed, failing every time due to unknown compatibility errors. Maybe this interference is because of the overwhelming energy that this facility is creating, but I don't know. It's very odd that out of the 31 ghost fragment lore entries for the Crucible maps, this is the only one that results in errors. Also, side note, one of my favorite favorite maps for Rumble and Supremacy. Moving on, Memento, located in the European Dead Zone on Earth. Oh my gosh, makes you wonder what the hell happened to our OG map designers. Memento had level changes, right? That's what we loved about it. You could post up top. You had a backside, which normally had a control point in that little small building. You had little tunnels everywhere. This was a super cool map that offered a lot of variety that for 6v6 made sense. I mean, consider all the maps inside of Destiny 2. A lot of those were built for 4v4. Now, on the outskirts of the European Dead Zone lies a ruin, once a thriving riverside city center. Crucible codename Memento. The ghost city features resplendent streets and bleeding-edge pre-golden architecture, or did, before nature reclaimed it. When pressed about the sensibility of maintaining a Crucible arena amidst a sanctioned dead zone, Lord Shaxx responded, "Nothing in this world stays dead for long anymore. We need to be ready." Dude, I love how Shaxx is just like, yo, is this a burial ground? Crucible map, Pantheon, located in the Black Garden on Mars. Now, this map is actually inside of Destiny 1, although aesthetically, I prefer the Destiny 1 version. I just thought it looked better. Now, deep in the endless channels of the Black Garden, an ancient Vex temple sits high on a plateau, buzzing with anomalous messages, fearing that the minds which live within seek to return. The Crucible has set up shop here to master the ins and outs of Vex-controlled landscapes and keep watch should any Vex find a way back. Now, there's an important story that's actually tied to this place. Not just the Black Garden, but of Pantheon itself. Sometime during the events of the Taken King, Cayde 6 actually sent a fellow hunter out on a mission to check out a Vex gate on Venus. Now, this hunter's name was Tevis Larson. You team up with Cayde and head to Venus to go look for him. Tevis eventually radios out to Cayde and says that he stepped through the Vex gate and ended up somewhere in the Black Garden, but his ghost didn't make it to the other side. Tevis radios again and says he's ghostless, fighting off waves of Vex and running low on void lights, so you gotta hurry. You later find his ghost dead and make your way to the Vex gate in the Valley of the Kings to reach Tevis before it's too late. But once you get there, you're too late. Tevis was already gone, but his void light still burned. So you take up his void light and are then given the power of Night Stalker. Now, to get a little taste of the Guardian Tevis, here's a lore entry released in Shadowkeep. Describe time? No, really. Give it a go. You're gonna say something about sequence of events, aren't you? Seconds sliced off a clock, marching one by one off into infinity. Go ahead. Use your metaphors. A line, a loop, a flat circle. Heard someone say time was like water once. At least that was novel. The Vex, they're closest to understanding it. They've got distance from it. If time's a river, then we're fish, and they're diving birds. What's wet mean to a fish? What's it mean to an osprey who's never fooled by refraction on the water surface? Hold on now. You're gonna say, this is getting a bit abstract, even for the bodiless echo of a dead guy in the garden. You want concrete truths? Something simple, digestible? A story to keep the dark out? You want time to be a staircase we keep climbing forever. But hey, even a Guardian skips back a step or two now and then. Die with your ghost in range, and it'll just pop you back to before that bullet. Give you the chance to make a fate you like better. Nothing's been simple on Earth since that big white cue ball rolled in from the next neighborhood over. And the stories, they don't work too well as a nightlight anymore. You're gonna say, but the Traveler's our friend. The Traveler likes us. It gave us a golden age and garden worlds and guardians. You're gonna say, you wouldn't be alive without it, Mr. Big Shot. Without it, I wouldn't be stuck in the Black Garden making bets with myself on which goblin's going to be the next to slip on a soggy leaf and fall off a cliff either. You took my light already. You better take my advice. I know the void's still calling, but I've come untethered. I can't reach it anymore. So if I'm right that I can reach you, you keep your ears open. I don't care how much you hate hearing it. This is important. The Vex understands time in a way we never will. Doesn't matter how long I spend here watching them. Doesn't matter how many jury-rigged portals Guardians fling themselves through. We live in time. They use it as a tool. Any moment that's ever happened, any moment that will ever happen, they can go back to it, play it again till they get it right. Simulate it. The light's a counter to that. They come back, a Guardian comes back. They simulate an ending, a Guardian tears through it. Stalemate. With the Vex in the garden, they bend the knee to the garden's heart. It gives them power till you got lucky. The Vex outside, they made a different calculation. They run. But the Vex inside make the same deal you make every day of your unnatural life. And who's to say that deal won't start paying off for them again sometime soon? You can't understand the Vex, and you don't want to understand the heart. But is your ignorance any more forgivable when it's willful? Lots of questions and not lots of answers. Better take care or you'll drown in them. Surely as you'll drown in time. Whether it's anything like a river or not, you see? Now, Tevis also owed Cayde 6 a huge amount of glimmer. He stole Cayde's icebreaker and cheated in every game of dice they ever played, but they were still great friends. Some would argue it even made their friendship better. Honestly though, one of the coolest lore entries there, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. Moving on to Sector 618, located in the Cosmodrome wall on Earth. Yeah, literally the wall. Definitely not one of my favorite maps. Far from from it. Sector 618 is a recently established Crucible arena mired in a ruin of the Cosmodrome. Secured by shacks and a Red Jack fire team, the space has been converted into an obstacle course for the Guardians, adding balance and navigational challenges to the live fire proceedings. But the firefights of the Crucible aren't the first that the facility has seen. The battles that shook the walls of Sector 618 belied the simple name, taken from its designation on the Vanguard Atlas. It was chosen as an arena because the look of the place reminded Lord Shaxx of the spirit of war. Only Rasputin, who was operational during its height, could have witnessed what transpired here long ago, but the Warmind remains silent about a great many things. Now, Skyshock, located in old Russia on Earth. Oh man, another big boy map that Bungie left behind? Now, this repowered interplanetary defense array in the Cosmodrome, once under the control of Rasputin, was recently ravaged by the Hive. Now cleared and controlled by the Crucible, the deserted cedars left amongst the Skyshock array offer more evidence that the Hive's endless battle with the last Warmind still rages on and has now reached Earth. Personally, I would just kind of post up somewhere with an icebreaker and just pick people off. It was a cool map, and again, Bungie was trying to like lean into that big team battle, having pikes, turrets, etc. But considering how large this map was, like you could have done like 12v12, 16 versus 16, 20 versus 20. All of that would have fit perfectly here on this one. Now, the Cauldron, located on the dark side of the moon. Yes, we have it inside of Destiny 2, and I have mixed feelings about this map. Like sometimes I love it, and other times people and their terrible internet affects the doors in weird ways, and I get killed. A lot of people remember Cauldron for that one spooky weekend of Trials of Osiris where there was no radar. Now, the Warlock's most lucid theories assert this crumbled husk of a Hive ritual site is one of many ceremonial transmogrification chambers hewn beneath the moon's crust. Now secured and maintained by the Crucible, scheduled study of its remnants suggests a sacrificial purpose, where other forms of life were given an audience with the reigning monarch and judged before the power of darkness. And you can see by design that sacrificial remnant, right? It definitely looks like a place that would actually happen. Now, the Drifter, located in the Foundling's Gyre in the Reef. And this map right here, man, was like grenade capital, right? With the tunnels and everything, you could throw a well-placed grenade in those tunnels, and if you got enough enemies in there, it would beautifully chain kills. Now, Hive incursions in Reef space are rare, but as with all wounds the Hive inflict, their effects linger. The Drifter is a catch that faced such an infraction. The attack rendered its servitor inoperable, overwhelming all self-repair subroutines, and so what remains has quietly been added to the graveyard encircling the Reef. Lord Shaxx decreed live combat within the layout of such a prominent fallen ship design would be invaluable, and the Crucible claimed it soon after with no word of disapproval from the Shattered Reef. Now, moving on, we have the Dungeons, located at the Rings of Saturn. Spacefaring Hive vessels contain living components, and like the Hive themselves, are a terrifying amalgam of predator genetics, arcane bioenergetics, and what we must consider as darkness incarnate. But Lord Shaxx and his Red Jacks have proven even a Hive ship can be tamed. This was a very interesting map. We actually had trials on it a few times. You have that drop down tunnel, right? And this is what I mean when I say about like Destiny 1 maps. We had multiple levels. So you could be having an entire gunfight happening above you, and then below have a completely separate battle. And when you had maps this large, it was actually surprising how often you actually had 1v1s. This was a very fun map to me. Now, Bannerfall. Located in the last city on Earth, Lysander and Concordat mark the most recent example of a city political factions rising in opposition to the consensus. This site marks a legendary battle where New Monarchy's guardians rose to deliver the final blow to the Concordat, unraveling the war effort Lysander sought to bring against the Vanguard. Now, Lord Shaxx has commanded the area not only to commemorate this last stand, but as a reminder of the city's solidarity against those who seek to undermine the extreme efforts and sacrifice we make together to keep our peace. Now, to understand the lore of Bannerfall, we've got to talk about what this consensus is. The consensus is the ruling body of the city and used to include a single member of each accepted faction to represent their faction, a single member of each Guardian class to represent the Order of the Guardians, and the Speaker acted as the head of the consensus. Now, the consensus allowed each faction and Vanguard order to pursue their respective agendas through legal means. Now, the Concordat was a Guardian faction led by an individual with the name Lysander. Unlike the other factions, New Monarchy and Dead Orbit, the Concordat's ideologies and beliefs were largely a mystery. Lysander and the Concordat attempted to overthrow the Speaker and made their last stand at Bannerfall, where the Guardians of New Monarchy defeated them. Now, Lysander and the Concordat Guardian supporters were exiled from the last city, but the Hidden have gathered reports that Lysander is still out there, plotting his next move. The Future War Cult ended up taking the Concordat's place as a faction in the tower and a part of the Consensus. As for the Consensus now, after the Speaker died during the Red War, Zavala took his place as the head, and after the conclusion of Season the Splicer and the coup led by Lakshmi, Dead Orbit and New Monarchy fled the city, and Future War Cult was disbanded, with many of their members who disagree with Lakshmi's ideas joined the vanguard. When someone asked me, Cross, does Bungie have enough material to make a TV series with? Yes, they do. Just the political strife, right? We could have like Game of Thrones level stuff here. Now, Blind Watch, located in the Meridian Bay on Mars. Funny enough, this was actually a map that used to be a map for Trials with Cyrus, but it became such an unbalanced map, Bungie removed it as one of the rotating maps for Trials. Now, the Blind Watch was once a clandestine Guardian outpost on the outskirts of Freehold, used to monitor Cabal activity in and around the buried city. Now, after the Cabal consolidated their forces near their fortified exclusion zone, the site was reclaimed by the Crucible as a combat training ground. Resting atop an old Clovis Bray science facility, the Blind Watch allows Guardians to acclimate to the harsh Martian environment while maintaining a combat-ready presence should the Cabal ever begin to mobilize. Now, this is one of those maps that blows my mind, that it's somewhere we just casually find at. There's literal lore that confirms that Siva is underneath our feet, alive, in the Clovis Bray facility that Blind Watch rests upon. And we're just here chilling, capturing points and getting that elo, while one of the most dangerous and infectious things in the Destiny universe is directly underground. Now here's a lore entry of multiple ghosts finding each other and having a conversation. 2 more scans, and she can move on to the elevated grid. There wasn't really anything new other than the delta to sea level, but at less than 30% of the way through 2,128 scans. Even a distinction without a difference could feel like a brand new shell. Cassiopeia, so numb after months with just her own scans for company. She didn't even pick up another ghost being this close. A verse? Wait, I'm sorry. You're Obsidian. Wow, how long has it been? Well, I mean, I know. It's been 6.8 years. It's just an expression. Obsidian floated closer. That's okay. It has been a while. I guess you haven't found yours yet? Cassiopeia projected glumness. Not yet, but I haven't been looking on Mars for that long, at least. I'm optimistic. You should be. I was just at the city last year. A lot more of us are starting to find our Guardians late. What's that? Cassiopeia resolved to run a full-range self-diagnostic before the next grid. 2 ghosts within 20 meters, and she didn't sense either one. Something was off. The new arrival chirped and spoke up. Hello, you two. I'm glad. Identify, Obsidian, to see a friendly face. I haven't been myself lately. Obsidian looked at Cassiopeia. He read as nervous. She probably did too. I was beneath the Blind Watch for a while. A long Siva Mem GH404. Wow. It was fun. There were puzzles. No one was alive down there though. Cassiopeia's scan of the new ghosts returned nothing amiss. Are you okay, friend? I'm great. Something got in me, but the light, if light, then warning, burned it away. It's gone forever now. Consume, failure, replicate, failure, enhance, failure. There was a silence for a full 3 seconds. Then Obsidian spoke up, his words coming quickly. Well, great to see you again, Cassiopeia. Good luck. He zipped away. Cassiopeia watched him disappear into the horizon. 2 self-diagnostics, she muttered. So yeah, there's just a ghost out there, somewhere, infected with Siva. Now the next map is Crossroads, located in the Lost Oasis on Mars. I loved this map. Again, you could see where like the Halo roots are coming out in Bungie's map designs here. Now the lore for this one, an active Vex structure on Mars with no Cabal vying to occupy it or destroy it is rare. Even rarer is such a facility abandoned by the Vex themselves. Now detailed analysis of the site estimates 3 separate ecosystems that the landscape could support if the area had any wildlife to benefit from. A hidden report to Icarus mentioned they clove this ruin out of the land, possibly to defend themselves from a long vanished enemy, perhaps to isolate the land for experimentation. Now the Vex are easily the most mysterious race that we are enemies with. They have so much power and we understand so little of it. Even their structures also puzzle us. Now there's been speculation amongst my editors that after the light versus darkness saga, once concluded, we'll be in this constant war with the Vex next. And considering they can control time and we can keep coming back to life, simulations versus infinite lives, who would win? I don't know. Now take a listen to this transcript of a hunter talking about the Vex to himself from a post-match report on Crossroads. They seem to understand this exactly. It's odd. This place, of all places we fight, is the one that sticks in my head as I'm trying to focus on the match. Fallen dens and hive dungeons and old world ghost towns. All reminders of why and what we're fighting. But these Vex structures, not reminders, but warnings that say you think you know a thing or two about technology and science in the universe, you don't know a damn thing. Maybe they're right. Next map, Firebase Delphi. Oh, a classic classic, located in the Eos Chasma on Mars. Now, when the Cabal decided to hold an area, they dig in deep. It's surprising, then, that the tunnel system at Firebase Delphi is woefully incomplete by Sand Eater standards. One theory is that it was built simply to be inspected, to satisfy some commander's lack of progress on another front. Perhaps the Cabal simply cut their losses once they realized that the location of the base was suboptimal. Although half measures are really not something they're known for. We're talking about a culture that will grind a mountain to dust rather than build around it. There's actually an interesting transcript between two different Guardians, a Hunter and a Titan, that takes place after they secure Firebase Delphi as a Crucible zone. Have a listen. Something's wrong with this place. You always say that when we clear a new area, and this time I'm right. We won this place. Enjoy it. We don't win much. We didn't win this place. They're running from something, and whatever they're running from, it isn't us. Now, back in the Destiny 1 days, and even before that, the Cabal were always fighting the Vex. So maybe they left Firebase Delphi either in pursuit of them or because of them. Or maybe Firebase Delphi holds another mystery. That we may never know. Next is Last Exit, located in the Ishtar Sink on Venus. I'm already having flashbacks and nightmares of no ammo trials, right? Now, the Red Jack fire team that discovered this ancient transit stop could detect no sign of recent struggle in the area. Despite the heavy damage the facility had sustained, the Red Jack Alpha reported that the station operating modules were stuck in protocol dubbed Last Exit. It seems passengers from the nearby collective were trying to escape some overwhelming force, and it appears that most did not succeed. Today, the desolate station is home to war games of the Crucible, and should the threat that destroyed this place return, the Guardians will be ready. Yeah, this was an interesting map. You had that outer area with like that gazebo. You had the train station down below. This was Venus on full display, and honestly, it did possess a beauty to it. Now, the next map is Skyline, located in the Berry City on Mars. Again, more flashbacks of icebreaker trials, right? Now, this Clovis Bray Center served as a hub to several company assets across Meridian Bay and beyond. Through a transit system connects the various Bray facilities. The exact breadth of the network has been lost to time. The Vanguard intends to shed light on the mystery. After the role Clovis Bray Tech played in Earth's Seaver's Crisis, Commander Zavala wants no stone unturned when it comes to the Golden Age conglomerate. But for now, Vanguard researchers have learned all they can from Skyline. It's Lord Shax's turn to scrutinize it. Now, the Timekeeper, located in the Meridian Bay on Mars. Lots of great Mars maps, right? This one was interesting. It was a very open map for the most part. You had that center area, and again, some level drops. There was even spots you can get up into to get the jump on your enemy. What was interesting about this map, though, was again, so many different fights could be taking place all over. Now, another mysterious structure built by the Vex millennia ago, or to come. The rogue warlock Osiris once theorized that this place, and others like it, were tuned to react only with the presence of darkness itself. Kind of spooky, huh? Next is Thieves Den, located in the Ishtar Sink on Venus. Oh my god, this is like prime House of Wolves, right? Such a fun map. One of my favorite spots on this map was that fallen ship outside. And again, I normally don't like doorways and maps, but this one was all right. Now, the lore: following the defeats of the House of Winter's ruthless kill, Draxus, Guardians found a number of abandoned fallen enclaves throughout the Ishtar Sink. Most were cleared out, but this recently active fallen hideout remained mostly intact, complete with idling skiff and constant reminders of the Fallen's presence. Now, following the capture of this new zone for the Crucible Reclamation and Security Squad responsible for securing it mocked the Fallen house that used to reside here by shouting, "Whose house? Our house!" as they patrolled the area. Toxic Floating Gardens, located in Pomona Mons on Venus. Whether the site ever held the fabled beauty of the other gardens is unclear, as the Vex had long overridden it with their anabolic algorithms. But it belongs to the Crucible now, and when I see heavy weapon fire tearing across the landscape, all I see is beauty. Lord Shax. Now, there's actually a lore entry recorded between a Warlock and a Titan during a combat exercise in the Floating Gardens. Readings don't make sense. When they jump, it's like they don't exist, same as Warlocks blink. Even Warlocks register on trackers. How do Vex just appear? So they've been physics. So does Transmat. Not the same. What happens when two Vex jump into the same space? I've actually seen Warlocks do that. Thank the Traveler we had Ghost on standby. A beautiful map though, guys. I really enjoyed the bridge area, right? And then just the upper area with the statues. No lie, Vex got style, dude. I'm just saying. And legs for days? Next, we have First Light, located in the Mare Cognitum on Earth's moon. And boy, was this a big map. Huge, fellas. And I want to say say this map was also in the alpha and the beta. This was the map that I think many people experience PvP for the very first time. But the lore reads, what was once an unassuming exobotany laboratory complex turned into ringside seats to the end of the world during the collapse. Immense fissures in the moon's crust spew a sickly yellow miasma and a hint at the utter destruction going on deep beneath the surface. Whatever the Hive are up to, they've been at it a long time, and they're not overly concerned with keeping Luna in one piece. Now, this short paragraph doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the lore behind First Light and the much bigger picture the location is related to. Check out this transmission captured from live combat feed of a ghost wandering around First Light. This will be my last transmission. Not sure I even have the light left to send it. Thought I'd look for a guardian on Luna, a First Light colonist, a downed reef pilot, maybe an exo who never came home from the war. Is it possible to miss someone you've never met? Finally, another First Light technician. All right, let's see about you. Hoo boy, another one. DNA degradation alone makes this impossible. But even if I could bring you back, who'd put you back together again? Inextirpable psychological trauma, indelible psychosis, violence, paranoia, obsessive behavior, and yeah, some kind of hallucinatory mechanism. Damage to the occipital lobe and limbic. And then those weird formations in the parietal and temporal. It's like something rewired your brain, but did it through your DNA. What were they doing up here? Now, after my editor Jared actually found this lore entry, it sent him down this deep rabbit hole of endless branching lore. There's a lot to First Light, and we're not gonna go over everything, but here's the basics. During the Golden Age, Clovis Bray teamed up alongside aeronautics of China to study a signal that was coming from inside the moon. This was known as the K1 Project. You might recall the name K1 from the lost sectors on the moon in Destiny 2. K1 Crew Quarters, K1 Logistics, and K1 Revelation, and K1 Communion. These were most of the facilities that the crew studying the signal used and lived in. The crew at the First Light were thought to have been studying exobotany, but were really investigating what was eventually found inside the moon, as the K1 Project was meant to be kept a secret. Now, Commander Kwang Zon was the head of the K1 Project and a member of the aeronautics of China. This mysterious signal beneath the moon's surface was eventually uncovered as the crew drilled down through the moon until they crashed into a black pillar that was holding up a strange artifact. And this artifact was creating the signal and also shut off all the crew's electronics as soon as they reached it. From this day forward, this artifact would be known as the Anomaly. That's right, this lore is a 2-for-1 deal. The Anomaly is what's at the center of the Anomaly Crucible map. Once the Anomaly was discovered, the scientists of K1 began to study it. But over time, everyone who came in close contact with it for long sessions began to show weird symptoms. Psychological trauma, dreams while awake, hallucinations, hearing whispers, violence, paranoia, obsessive behavior, insomnia. The commander of K1 even reported seeing a dark, tall, statue-like figure standing over her while she was trying to sleep. Human-like, but way too tall. Sound familiar? Sounds almost like the darkness statues that we see within the pyramids in Destiny 2. The statues we commune with to speak with the darkness. Now, the commander took these symptoms seriously, so they began to give 2-hour shifts to each scientist. No one could be near the Anomaly for any longer than that, but everyone's symptoms got worse still. There's even lore entries where 2 scientist groups are arguing over a small 9 minutes of Anomaly time, and which team should be the one to get the extra time. They were becoming obsessed with the Anomaly. Studies didn't glean much info either, as the Anomaly casing is constructed in a manner that defies any science. Now, before the entire crew went absolutely mad, the commander of K1 attempted to sever consistent communication with First Light and Clovis Bray because she didn't want Clovis Bray to take credit for all the work she and her crew had done, which has apparently happened in the past. Alton Bray, Clovis Bray's grandson, who was the company's liaison for the K1 project, found out about this and confronted Commander Zahn, and unbeknownst to her, Clovis Bray already had a continuous watch on the ongoing studies of the K1 project via an early Rasputin AI known as Firewall that had been assisting the commander throughout the K1 project's lifetime and had access to most files and logs. Rasputin had direct contact with Firewall and thus had access to most of the same information, which is how Clovis's grandson got the information on the studies of the Anomaly, which is how Clovis Bray ended up studying the Anomaly, which is where he discovered what he calls clarity, which led to him putting himself into an exo and living forever. That's a whole other storyline that just keeps on going. Long story short, the K1 crew went mad. Lots of them died from terrible symptoms. Others died when mysterious beings, only quoted as things, attacked the crew. That one ghost found a First Light technician with their DNA somehow altered through their brain. I don't think we know of an enemy that can do that necessarily, so who knows? Crazy stuff. Oh, also, one of the technicians that went crazy during the K1 project, David Pale, had a bout of insomnia when he came up with new ship drive designs that were eventually used for the Exodus project. These drives Hive's designs allowed the colony ships to travel the long distances needed to reach faraway planets so humans could use SIVA tech to colonize those worlds. Unfortunately, most of those ships crash, thus never completing their journey. Anyways, the Anomaly is currently sitting in the facility still. The symptoms don't affect Guardians, apparently, or else we'd be going mad with the amount of times we load it into the map. Here's actually a lore entry of a Titan trying to punch her way into the Anomaly, which is such a Titan thing to do. A Titan once tried to punch the Anomaly until it opened. What happened? Nothing. But one day later, to the second, a Warsat fell on her head. Boom, direct hit. Beeline from low orbit to her skull. Coincidence? Maybe. She okay? Yeah, but she never punched that Anomaly again. LOL! Now the Rusted Lands, located in the Easter Flood Zone on Earth. A classic map as well. We have it in Destiny 2. The Hive never leaves the moon. This is Dogma, a way to soothe frightened children and reassure wary Guardians. Not so long ago, a wandering hunter and our fire team stumbled onto a feral community in the Easter Flood Zone. The gaunt survivors, huddled in these bombed out ruins, spoke of a terrible presence and begged for protection. No self-respecting Guardians could refuse. As night fell, the Guardians found themselves the hunted, stalked through the ruins by shapes of bone and shadow. The discovery of a Hive Seeder made the truth plain. Mankind's ancient enemy had come to Earth. The final confrontation came in the shadow of the Seeder, as a Hive wizard and her knights rose to challenge the Guardians. Only one Guardian returned to the city, her knife painted in black ash, a trail of grateful survivors in tow. Now, in the chilling shadows of the Hive's pods, Guardians honed their skills in hopes that they may one day live up to the heroes of Rusted Lands. Something to think about when you're playing on Rusted Lands? Emotion, no damage. Now Vertigo, located in the Calorus Basin on Mercury. Now the lore, when the Vanguard launched its first waves of exploratory ships to Mercury, it found that the Cabal fascination with the Vex isn't contained to the war fronts of Mars. The Guardians discovered a small fleet of Cabal dropships hanging in place alongside a collection of unique structures. Their propulsion systems were slapped in sequence to keep the ships there indefinitely. The fate of the Cabal is as mysterious as Vertigo itself. The Guardians detected no catastrophic malfunction, no disease, and no bodies aboard any of the fully supplied ships. As for the structure, upon recent inspection by Lord Shaxx himself, the Crucible handler sent a recommendation to Commander Zavala and the Speaker. The verticality will do wonders for new recruits. It's time to fight. Once again, more mysterious Cabal disappearances within or around Vex architecture, once again confirming that we have no idea what the Vex are doing, or what Vertigo even is. Here's a conversation between two Guardians at Vertigo. Nobody knows what this place is, not on record anyway, but I was talking to a Warlock the other night, and he started rambling on about Mercury and Vex and some mad quantum theory space-time simulation running beneath a randomized pattern of Vex math and meant to gauge light and aggressive refractive something something. Math is my word, by the way. He was talking Warlock and lost me about 2 sentences in. Anyway, point is, nobody knows what this place is. This was also one of the maps you had that portal area where you could literally go right up to and then snipe the cap zones. Beautiful place to get multi-kills. Next is Widow's Court, located in the European Dead Zone on Earth, and another map we have back inside of Destiny 2. Nestled against the crumbling facade of a derelict wall on the edge of the European Dead Zone, there are countless stories of the events that left this small village a ghost town, but its eerily quiet streets and nostalgia have made it a favorite of Lord Shaxx. Now, we searched high and low for these so-called stories, and we couldn't find anything, so use your imagination. Shores of Time, located in Map Mons on Venus. The lore, the sulfur caves along the shores of Time are now too unstable to be an effective base of operations for the Vex, but they suit the purpose of the Crucible just fine. The region, which also houses the remains of one of the Ishtar's Collective's mini research stations, is a mix of geological chaos and the structured intent of ancient Vex machinery. The contrast between jagged, boiling terrain and the measured purpose of each Vex surface creates a unique battlefield. One where the planet itself seems to have risen up in defiance of the Vex intrusion. There's no crazy in-depth lore for the Shores of Time because it's a Vex location, and once again, we know next to nothing about the Vex. But here's a funny lore entry where a Titan is complaining about his teammates not playing the objective in a control match. We were holding B and C, had them locked, but someone always gets cocky. You know the problem with heroes. In the wilds, they save the day. In the Crucible, they cost you an easy win. Always going for glory when the real prize is survival and victory. My God, does this lore entry not relate? Somebody always pushes for A, and then it's GG. Exodus Blue, located in the Cosmodrome on Earth, grimly referred to as the Graveyard. Exodus Blue was only recently secured for the Crucible combat. Located among the ruins of one of the Cosmodrome's colony ship gantries, this site is a memorial to the grief and horror of the collapse. Thousands died here in a last-ditch effort to outrun the oncoming darkness. But it is also a sign of hope. Once the Cosmodrome is secured, here, the great colony ships may fly again. And this location was chosen specifically to send a message to the fallen house of devils. You may be picking at the bones of our history, but we are still here and we are still strong. Now, Exodus Blue is actually an interesting one, as we don't know much about the ship Exodus Blue. The map might share the same name, but the actual ship Exodus Blue crashed somewhere else in the Cosmodrome. This map is located underneath where the ship would have been stationed. If you look out into the distance, near where Heavy spawns on the map, you can see many other colony ships that never took off during the collapse. Exodus Blue was one that did, but it crashed for unknown reasons. Now, Exodus Black also crashed when Nessus suddenly changed orbit on its own to block the flight path of Exodus Black, forcing it to crash land on the planet's surface. Exodus Red was sent off into deep space by Rasputin, never to be heard from again, but there was a confirmed cache of Siva on Exodus Red and Exodus Black, as a plan for the Exodus project was to launch these colony ships full of people to distant planets to create new human colonies on. These colonies were to be created using Siva, so it's safe to assume that Exodus Blue also had a cache of Siva, which means there's a chance it's just lying out there somewhere in the debris of the crash ship in the Cosmodrome. Siva in the Cosmodrome, Siva on Nessus, and Siva in space. Fellas, when are we going to get another Siva expansion, right? Now, here's a lore entry which asks the question, exactly how many Exodus ships were there? Overheard at the Fuan Institute Library. Get over here and tell me this is what I think it is. It looks like Golden Age shipping records. Look at these quantities. It must be a colony ship. Must be. Excuse me? You do remember you're supposed to be a scholar, right? Come on. We know they were sending out colony ships in the Golden Age. We know they sent off the Exodus Black, which was lost for centuries until what's their name found it on Nessus. And we know they tried to accelerate the launch of the Exodus Blue during the collapse, but it crashed in the Cosmodrome. Think of how many other colors there are. Listen, you think I wouldn't love to know that humans made it to the other solar systems, but we don't have the evidence. I'm gonna find it. A Golden Age map of the stars. Don't stop looking. Just, you know, cite your sources. Now, the Burning Shrine, located in the Fields of Glass on Mercury. Such a good one to end it on, fellas. The lore for this one is juicy. This clockwork impossibility is but one small conduit in a vast network, extending throughout the dead planet's core. The unknown energies and complex mechanics of the shrine have been studied and mapped by the curious, yet its purpose remains a mystery. The only truth that can be agreed upon is that the structure is intimately tied to the past and the future of one of our greatest enemies, the Vex. The shrine has been claimed as a battleground for the Crucible in an effort to familiarize Guardians with both Vex architecture and the otherworldly energies that signal their presence. Having a constant flow of combat-ready Guardians on hand, should the shrine ever achieve a higher functionality, is simply a strategic byproduct of the Crucible's presence. So once again, another Vex construct that we still don't understand. But we do have some cool lore of an actual Trials of Osiris match from the perspective of a Guardian called Krimic 5. It was Krimic 5's honor to hold the flank, sun on his back. There was no better position to provide Overwatch in the Burning Shrine. He was the watchtower, and none would escape his vigil. Kurt radio chatter signaled his fire team's advance as he called out enemy maneuvers. Krimic 5 watched tense bursts of movement and exchanges of fire as his team jockeyed for position. Sola had ripped through the previous opponents with off-putting ferocity, and Krimic was ready for this to be their last match of the day. He looked over her through his scope. Sola's silhouette marinated in an eerie shimmer that distorted the air as she moved. He stilled his body and sent a shot over her head to force an opponent back into cover. Aiming a little close, Sola sent a glare over her shoulder into the sun. Krimic 5 moved his scope off her. Duck. His earpiece crackled. Kataki's voice drilled into his head. Thunder crash! Help! Kataki's voice screeched out of existence as a lightning overtook him, and Saint bellowed. Krimic saw a bright flash burst from the hallway leading towards Sea Point. Be advised, I'm leaving the perch. Moving the tray for Kataki. He slid into position and snapped his trusted long rifle down lane. His sights found an unlucky Titan, lightning still crackling from their armor. Fate cries foul for you, brother. The shot hit squarely and the Titan dropped. Sorry I couldn't save you, Kataki. Next time. The story of Krimic 5's fire team goes a lot deeper and a lot darker, and I'm looking forward to covering it in a future video. Fellas, that is your PvP Crucible maps and the lore surrounding them. Big shout out to the editing team for pulling all this information together. This was a lot of work, but man, it's so nice to see not only old maps that we are nostalgic about, but also to see why we even have those maps, what formed them, where they came from, why are we even there. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, a like on this video is very much appreciated. By no means are we a lore daddy. We're just out here dabbling, man. But I gotta say, interesting nonetheless. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.